for Tegan. You were good. Just make sure you speak through the microphone because you were a little bit soft last time. Unless you're eating.
A little bit softer now.
No one wants mouth.
A little bit louder now.
A little bit.
This is an NPR.
No
Ready?
smacking.
1, 2, 3.
Welcome to Myopia. We're back again with another Harry Potter. I'm Kelly, hosting again for you guys. We're going to do Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire this week, which I'm really excited about. So this is going to be our fourth movie, and I'm actually going to hand it off to Daniel for our plot synopsis.
Oh, well, hello, everyone. This is Daniel. Still waiting for the Weird Sisters debut album. It's been a while.
Twisted Sisters, buddy.
I'm not going to take that, Nick. I am not going to take that.
I have
love
trivia
you,
about
old
Weird
man.
Sisters when we get back to it.
Oh,
Girl.
we should.
I watched Addams Family this week. There's some other Weird Sisters in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Sexy, sexy twin sisters. We got a double mint sister.
Yeah. So, in terms of the plot, we're skipping ahead a little bit, but basically what this movie's about is that there's a Triwizard tournament that only happens every once in a while. I know it's an ancient tradition amongst wizards and wizarding students, and there's 3 tasks. Obviously, it's a Triwizard tournament. There's 3 tasks that everyone has to complete, and the person who comes in first is the Triwizard champion, which we don't understand what that means by the end of the movie, but
They win.
Yeah, they win.
They get the trophy.
So,
The Triwizard Cup.
So,
Twice, 3 times a wizard.
so there's 3 competitors in this. There's Fleur from France. There's
The
Victor.
sexy one.
Fleur Delacour. Flower of the Heart.
Mm-hmm. There's Victor Krum, who's a member.
Bulgarian.
He's a Bulgarian who's a member of the national championship.
One of the
Quidditch
youngest
team.
players of the Bulgarian national Quidditch team.
One of? It seems like he would be the youngest, but
On that team, he is, but I think like over history, like
History.
one of the youngest players, and he's on. I should have separated them. You're right.
and then from Hogwarts we get Arpat, who is Cedric Diggory.
Cedric.
Which I believe
Feel like Sophia
this
the First.
ties
It's not
into
Cedric,
the
it's
Twilight-averse because, by the way, this is Nick Hoffman, host of Myopia Defender
I
Johnson.
know. I didn't.
Riffer and Cineprov. And Tegan, share your lovely past. Say hi, this is Tegan.
Hi, this is Tegan.
I'm sorry, guys.
I'm here.
I didn't introduce everybody. I skipped a
So
step.
when Cedric jumps out of the tree and you meet him in this movie, I didn't really have a connection to R. Patterson at all.
Mm-mm.
And I was like, Like I was like with Hermione and Ginny, like, who's that? Like,
Yeah, it's just this
My
random person.
theory is, spoiler alerts, he dies in this movie, but then
it was so
that's
sad.
when he becomes a vampire and he just pretends he's a century old for the rest of the movies.
Doesn't this movie take place in 1994?
Well, right, and Twilight takes place in 2008, previous episode in October. So,
that's awesome.
in my mind, he died here, and then someone sucked him off. Let me try that again.
Whatever keeps you asleep at night. That's
so
wrong.
I'll quote Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence. Someone ate out his essence. And
Don't be surprised because I wrote him.
And then
Sorry.
he became a vampire
That
and
happened.
pretended that he fit into that family, which he did not because he was the only brunette in the whole thing. And so, therefore, maybe he couldn't talk about his past because he was a wizard, and you can't talk about being a wizard to muggles, so he just pretended to be a vampire in Washington.
Well,
Who gave Nick whiskey?
he
Me.
gave himself
I founded it in myself, and then started drinking, and I had ideas.
This is what happens when we record at your place.
Well, there's one thing we're forgetting about the plot.
The
Which
metric
is
system?
well, that's what the stonecutters have kept down. But anyway, there's a 4th champion that's not supposed to exist, and that's Harry Potter.
Harry Plopper. He shits the bed.
Wait, the pig from the Simpsons movie?
Yeah, right.
We just had 2 Simpsons references in like 15 seconds.
You're
What's
right.
going on here?
We're
I blame
better than
you.
the rest of you.
Yeah, there you go. Well, anyway, there's this big controversy around it, but still he's allowed to compete. And then while Harry's competing, he uncovers a sinister conspiracy. Ooh.
Spilling
It's
goblet
true.
is hard when you're drinking. So this is 2005, and so we have a terrorist attack because of course we do.
Well,
Oh, it's true. Yeah, at the beginning of the movie.
here's something that's weird, and I know this is usually Kelly's deal.
Do
metric
tell.
system.
Well,
Harry's
I
wand.
remember this is like
Harry's dong, is that what you said?
Wand.
Oh, same thing. Oh, sorry, Daniel.
I remember.
Oh, you shut your face.
This
Who's
is-
hotter, Harry or Hermione in this movie? Hermione, right?
In the fourth one?
Yeah. Because they all have that terrible hair except for Hermione, who looks like on point.
She's adorable.
After,
She is.
After 7 months.
I mean, we're
of
talking about
quarantine,
13-year-olds, but still.
I've got
We're going with the
Harry's
hottest
hair.
person in the movie?
Yeah.
Actually, I
Tenet.
think. Well,
I mean,
yes,
we're
but
going to have to get you a clock.
I actually think Pavarti cleans up pretty nicely in this one. If we're really talking about perfect faces,
Yeah,
like
man.
oh my.
Totally.
I feel like she's a very looked over character, but when you actually look at her face is flawless.
I
she's
thought
a
you were gonna-
beautiful woman.
I thought you were going to pick Hagrid's giantess girlfriend.
Oh,
Oh,
dude.
Madame Maxine is.
Awesome.
I will
She's
say
awesome.
that like G plot is the most adorable thing that has happened in
It's
this
so
movie.
cute.
'Cause
We
he
have
is like
never-
all thumbs. Like
He's
We have
so
never
about
made it
it.
through a plot synopsis.
Well, I think
Why wouldn't we?
Once, and
By
I
the way-
love it.
To you, because I love you to death, but everyone has seen these films.
Yeah.
So what do we need to talk about other than the
and
fact?
two, Daniel said it's basically the Triwizard Tournament, and that is basically the entire movie. In fact, I didn't get to finish reading the book before I watched this movie to do this podcast,
Because
and I was thinking, so it's like school in session while this is going
Yes.
on.
yes.
They don't
School
have
is in
classes.
session.
They don't
do
have
it on the
homework.
weekends, but the Triwizard tournaments do not have to do finals.
First of all, high schoolers always do it on the weekends. Secondly, I would love to see like Victor
And after
Crumb-
volleyball practice.
Right, girl. We
Oh
dated
my
in
God,
high
Mom,
school.
I was kidding.
That's what it is. You're just like, we're going to the basement to watch some sort of wizard movie.
Yeah, we used to go to church.
I'm sure you did. And
Scotty does.
My boyfriend was Baptist. No one knew.
And
someone said, "Oh God," and it was for-
every Sunday.
and someone said, "Oh God," for clearly different reasons.
I don't know where we were going.
Well, no, my point was going to be, I would have loved to see like the French girls in a class, like in potions.
Yes.
You cut over to those girls because they have these like gorgeous, like kind of cerulean blue, like or maybe powder blue outfits with these little cool hats.
You do like a little dance.
Or
And
they're
it's
doing
Nephron
nighttime,
lights.
and like I love the entrances because they're so visually effective. But that is not how it worked in the books. The ship and the carriage were significantly bigger, and they had their classes in the carriage and the boat.
Let's
Two
get
things.
something-
Hey, shut your whore mouth. I will say two things.
It wasn't me. I didn't say it.
I will say this carries over from the third book in that, hey, fucking magic, right? So
Yeah.
the small carriage makes it feel like a clown car. The small ship.
Right. Well, it's just like we saw at the
That was the largest automobile they
Quidditch
could afford.
at the Quidditch World Cup, right? Your regular tent is a fucking 2-story mansion, right? Which we don't really get the explanation for
It's a
in the
TARDIS.
movies. Exactly, it's bigger on the inside, so it's bewitched to be bigger on the inside, which is perfect because it is good in David Tennant. This is amazing, and I love this movie so much.
Was he
It's
the
not my
doc-
favorite.
Was he the doctor at this point?
No.
I think it came out in 2000
This
that's
is
what I thought,
3
yeah.
years before, 4 years before.
Yeah.
It was the same
It was
year,
before.
I think, that he like took over, but I think he had
No, this is 2005.
Yes,
so
and
I
that's
think-
when Chris Eccleston.
That was Eccleston, so he was the year later.
Yeah.
And I will say that David Tennant plays Barty Crouch Jr. David Tennant is the 10th Doctor, who in 5s are like my favorite increments. Of course, he's 10, and of course, it's perfect. And he's also my first Doctor. My beautiful husband introduced me to Blink the first time. So if you haven't seen Doctor Who, I definitely recommend Blink. It explains the whole thing, and it makes Eccleston a little bit more tolerable. So then the whole time I was watching Tennant, I was waiting for that little tongue flip. And I will say, if you watch his final Christmas episodes, at one point he does lick his lips, and I count it, and it was the best moment of my whole life. I waited so long for that moment.
Well,
So no, you stop your roll. Sexiest Doctor, him, Tennant.
well, it's Colin
Yes.
Baker, clearly.
No, and that's the thing. I haven't seen a lot of the original Doctors, but sexiest Doctor, hands down, is David Tennant. Also, I've met him. Also, I met his father-in-law. Also, call me if you need any stupid background Doctor Who information about David Tennant, because odds are I know it.
So call her maybe. I will say,
maybe.
Tragically, that's why we're not compatible, because I'm clearly a Matt Smith.
I know you are.
In every
but that's
sense.
the thing. But the thing is, though, like, you are Matt Smith.
200%. And that's why you'd have a beer with me, but I'm not at all interesting in any other aspect.
Yeah, like I want my tiger. I don't want a clumsy house cat.
And you can imagine me running like Mr. Bean through a china shop, like, and that's Matt Smith.
Matt Smith is awesome, man.
No, and he's funny. And I will say, between the two seasons, they're both good. But if you want to feel like you're in love, you watch his episodes.
And I think Billy Piper said that. Oh my god, the actor that played Matt Smith, what's his actual name?
That's his name is Matt Smith.
Matt Smith. Oh, sorry, the 10th, whatever. It's fine.
11.
I can do this.
11Z.
He's the better kisser, I think, is what she said.
There you go.
And then she broke into a song because that was her thing.
Yes, which I did not know until we went to
Have you
England
seen her,
and
that
I
music
saw her
videos?
music video
'Cause girl.
where she's like on wires flying through. Oh my god, Billy Piper's a beast. Love her.
She might be the sexiest one, speaking of.
Might be?
Yeah.
Girl.
All right.
I mean, she's not my favorite companion, but I will have to say that as like my favorite
As a
actress.
redhead, who's your favorite? As a redhead.
It's got to be a redhead.
Of course it is a redhead. Oh my
so
god.
Arthur is clearly your favorite.
We're gonna do the Who cast one day.
This has been a divorce-worthy conversation with my husband and me.
Don't worry, he doesn't listen. Trust me.
Donna Noble is my favorite companion.
Of course she is.
My husband's favorite companion is Martha.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if he says that just because he knows it pisses me off or because he
Spite.
means it.
that was.
But I love Donna. I love that one of my best friends met Catherine Tate wearing my wig, cosplaying her at DragonCon. I fucking love that. I haven't washed my wig since. I'm buying a new one. I put it in a box. Like, it's fine.
Catherine Tate?
Tate.
Oh.
Tate.
I like
So
K9.
anyway, this has been the Secret Doctor Who fanboy cast.
Fangirl, sir.
Indeed. But there's
Let's
one thing
not
I'd
fall-
like to emphasize that's normally Kelly's deal here, which is the difference between the movie and the book, which is one thing that I
600
felt.
pages.
Well, yes.
At least.
Sorry.
Well,
Oh, no, let's get started.
I
It was a
remember.
thick book.
Whoa.
Frankly, I remember when this book coming out for the first time, and it was like one of those midnight Barnes & Noble releases back when Barnes & Noble and Midnight mattered.
And existed.
Shit, there you go. Also, Rory, by the way, before everybody tweets at us, I meant Rory. Arthur Darvill is the actor. But anyway,
I do love Rory.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. The thing that I'm thinking of is they go over the Quidditch World Cup in like 20 minutes at most in this movie, and that was like the first 100 pages of the book.
Yes.
And I was so disappointed. Because that really just built up the world that they were living in as wizards. I mean, this was a wizarding sport. This was a special thing to them, but at the same time, it's what united that community as a whole. To the point where, during the finals, it was like Bulgaria versus Ireland, but there was like an American wizard group that showed up. You finally got the sense that this universe existed outside Hogwarts, and I love that so much. And with Harry,
And the
being
stadium
there,
is
So glossed over.
huge.
and the fact that Harry was there and had never experienced this before was great, because once again he was an outsider introducing us to this world, and the movie just completely skips that.
Yes, it does, and it glosses over the game, and it doesn't, and it doesn't even, it completely skews how Harry saw this, because he saw it in the same box as Draco.
Mm-hmm.
He was up high. He was with the Minister of Magic. He was with the minister from Bulgaria and from France. They were all there together. And no Winky, you guys. No Winky, no Dobby in this movie. And I am so irritated about that, because I feel like it makes everything make so much more sense when it comes to Barty Crouch Jr. because we spent so much time last movie talking about, oh, how did Sirius get out of Azkaban? And then Barty Crouch Jr. just gets out of Azkaban and no one says how or why or what happened.
Right.
And Winky plays so much into that, and she doesn't exist.
I-
Dobby's not in this
He
one.
got out via the sonic screwdriver.
No, and that's
No,
like,
I have a question
Well,
for you.
in the movie, they don't even mention that he was ever in Azkaban.
Kelly,
but they do, because they say that Barty Crouch sent his own son to Azkaban. Sirius says that when he's in the common room.
He does.
So you know that,
Oh,
and
that's
you see
true.
that in the Pensave. Like, but you don't understand, how did he get out? How did he end up there? Because there weren't any breakouts. Nothing was reported. There's no way that Voldemort has enough of a body to do it. And Peter Pettigrew is a fuck up.
So my question, though, is, and I'm not challenging you, I just have an honest question. This movie is a tight skosh over 2 hours.
It's
right?
2 hours and 37 minutes.
Yes, but my question is, you explain that. Do you make it 2 movies? Do you expand this movie? And if you do either,
No, if
where's
you're gonna
the
leave
cut?
if you're going to leave Winky out, you address the fact that, I don't know, maybe you do it in the Pensieve and you show an extra 3.5 minutes where it shows a memory of, which you wouldn't be able to do because Dumbledore wasn't there. I don't know.
But like, that's
maybe
the
Crouch
problem.
talks about the fact that his wife died shortly after they left his last visit. Like, he corners Harry and has a nonsense conversation with him, which is so much more than it was in the book. But it's not. He just is like, oh, it's a thing. And then the lip sticks out. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's a conversation where they talk about that. Or maybe in the scenes in Harry's dream, they mention how he got out.
Honestly,
you could easily include it because the dream shows 4 or 5 times. So then why don't you take one of those times to maybe expand on the conversation?
Well, but like, and that's the problem. Like, how
or during the Veritaserum, how did you get out? 30 seconds, real quick.
honestly,
montage. But that's the question of this movie, which is, I like this one, and that's the problem, because I like how it flows, because this movie...
I don't. This is my least favorite movie.
Really?
I have so many other problems with all of the other ones.
The Chamber of Secrets, even?
Yeah. This is my least favorite movie.
Crackers.
And I don't know if it's because it's like right in the middle of everything, but it's not...
there
Because
are
there's not a
I don't love it.
There's not a David Tennant to get off?
Not enough.
There are a
No.
ton of plot holes in this movie. A ton.
There's so many. And the thing is,
Agreed.
most of those plot holes are addressed in the book, and they
Yeah.
just left them. And I know that there are movies with extended scenes, and my DVDs don't have that. Like, one of the extended scenes is at the Yule Ball, where Dumbledore introduces the Weird Sisters as the band that needs no introduction, because there is actually...
Wait,
a
I got
scene-
it. He goes, sister, don't know how much I missed her. That's a TGIF reference.
God
for those
damn
of you. Who are
you.
Exactly
God
my age.
Damn you.
No, but really, that's apparently how Dumbledore introduces them in an extended cut, which I haven't seen.
And again, since I just watched Adam's Family, it's just like, oh, the twins, and you're just
Right. Well, and it's actually because there is a band in like northern Canada or some weird place. It's actually called the Weird Sisters with a Y, and they didn't want it referenced, and they I don't know, said something to Warner Brothers, so they didn't do it. And then I guess Warner Brothers called them on their bluff with the Chilling Sabrina, the new one,
Yeah.
Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. That's actually a Warner Brothers funded show, and the
Yeah.
3 girls in there are called the Weird Sisters, just as a stick it to whatever that folk band is, just to call their bluff,
Weird.
which is crazy, but they didn't want to deal with it at the time, so they
Is
don't
it-
actually introduce them as the Weird Sisters.
Is it any good?
Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Yeah. Because I've read the comics. I haven't watched it yet.
So I haven't read the comics, but from what I understand from reviews, I wouldn't marry yourself to those. Just like
No, I
reading
haven't.
the
It's
actual
just-
Sabrina comics. I read the actual Sabrina comics as a kid, and like
Yeah.
obviously the show wasn't.
Well, I
not the
dig the
same.
aesthetic, because it's kind of like actual teen girl horror witch nonsense.
But they try really hard to like tie that aesthetic into Riverdale, which is another like.
And I guess for those of you who are listening, the zombie Archie series is also truly horrifying. It's Sabrina, who comes from the Archie comics, tries to resurrect. What's the guy who eats hamburgers?
Wimby?
No. The guy who wears the crown. Jughead.
Yeah, this is different. Totally different. Not even the same.
No, but Sabrina is from the Archie universe.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
No, but you shut your mouth. No, because it's because this comic I'm talking about is a precursor to those.
This is the first time you've said that to me on this podcast.
I know. Are you turned on?
No,
No.
I'm offended.
But it's the same thing to
I'm
you
not like
sometimes.
high voice Kelly offended.
So what happens is in this comic is Jughead's dog gets hit by a car.
Rude.
Sabrina raises it from the dead, and that's what causes the zombie apocalypse. And it's such a successful series that the Chilling Adventures come from that. It's the same cartoonist, it's the same illustrator, it's the same story writer. They're truly horrifying comics because the dog shows up at prom and fucking eviscerates them.
So she didn't raise the dog from the dead. She rose Harvey's brother from the dead.
No, I've read both of them. I've read them all.
Oh,
So-
well, I'm in the show.
So
Right,
speak-
no, but that comes from the comics too.
So speaking of Harry Potter,
No, this is better. No, I'm
So
kidding.
to the movie, I mean, honestly, I didn't dislike this as much as Chamber of Secrets. I didn't love it nearly as much as Prisoner of Azkaban.
Because you mean because Moaning Myrtle tries to look at Harry's penis, right?
gets a good glimpse.
Oh,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah, that
she
was
does.
awkward.
And the
Dude, it's
creepier
like-
thing is
and
that
again,
actress was 35.
You can't see us, but she's like
Totally scooting over to him.
Oh, but
she's
wasn't
getting a good
like,
scooting again.
I
There,
feel
we've
like
all been there.
I feel like you're
I
like
mean,
making it super
horrible.
obvious with the chair, and even she was more obvious.
Yeah.
Dude, she's like
She was like rubbing up against him in
Like,
that one scene.
Yeah.
She was exactly
Oh,
who I
man.
wanted to be when I was 14.
right.
Except she was,
that's how you-
35.
Exactly, she
I
was
will,
35.
but again, like I say, that's how you play the game. But if you're a director, you're doing it, and you're reaching out to them 14-year-olds. That's the thing. It's like that grab on the inside of a knee. You're just like,
Well, we're jumping all around the place. We've talked
I
about
dated a color guard girl in high school. That's the game.
Bruises, so many bruises.
except them
I
color
had
guards.
so many
and-
friends on color guard, and they were covered in bruises all the time. And I was just like, dude, play volleyball. It's not as bad.
Oh, shit snacks.
We're jumping all around the place. We've mentioned the beginning, which is the Quidditch World Cup, which is really underwhelming. It's interrupted
Dude,
by
oh,
the.
Ooh. If anyone can tell me who the name of the Irish seeker, who is not in the movies, but if anyone can tell me his name, I will buy you Starbucks.
Irish
Charlie
Show
O'Connor.
Ireland.
Tegan, do you remember?
No, but I remember the Weasley twins like singing about him.
His name is Aiden. And when I went to Universal Studios, or not, to Harry Potter World at Universal with my dad, and I bought my pink pygmy puff, just like Denny, because I'm a ginger, whatever. I named him Aiden, and everyone was like, like Sex in the City, and I was like, no, like the seeker for the Irish Quidditch team. And they were like, how do you remember that? And I was like, why don't you? I read this book every
Why
year.
don't
What do
you
mean,
remember
how do I
that?
remember that?
Yeah.
Come on.
Well,
Then you put your ovaries on the table and said, suck it.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
At least twice.
I suppose in the film, which by the way, this is not Alfonso Cuarón. I think this is the guy who directed About a Boy.
I
Directed
believe
this
you're
one.
right. I'll look.
Is this David Yates' first one?
No, it's not. It's not him.
Mike Newell.
Yes, it's him.
This is another standalone, right?
Yes, I think so. Well, I think this is supposed to introduce two things, which is first the idea of wizarding
system.
sport, which is, of course, what drives the rest of the movie, and the fact that the Death Eaters, which was Voldemort's death cult, which I know all the English wizards out there are screeching right now, having said that name. But I don't know. In the book, it was just so much better. And normally, I'm not the guy to say that, but Kelly, you're rubbing off on me.
I'm just saying.
I will say
the books are getting longer and the movie timelines are staying roughly the same, and there's just not enough space. And the way that these writers consolidate things, they do it poorly.
I will give you, I grab you by the penny bags then and say, what's the first one you do as a double film?
None, because double films shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, I like to say that on principle. I don't think double film should be a thing. I do say that taking each film and requiring it to be its own is poorly thought out. I think 4 and 5 could have been done on their own. There were just some parts that either were important that were left out or became important, which there was no way for them to know because it hadn't been published yet, and I will give them that. But I do truly feel that 7 didn't need to be 2 parts, but 6 and 7 needed to be split over 3.
Okay. I would take that.
Yeah.
If you had the scripts, I would rejigger it so that makes sense. I will say about this movie in particular, bringing up you and Daniel's point, the thing about this one is it feels like the movie should be athletically themed. Like there should be something like the wizards need to have a human masculine element or something, but then about 2/3 of the way through that changes.
Yes, and I think a big thing from the books that is lost is that the Department of Magical Sports is involved. Ludo Bagman is involved. We don't meet him. He's not super important. Is the only time that I'm going to say a main character is okay being left out of a movie. However, they should have been mentioned. They should have been discussed.
Well, and if you were going to do a truly Chekhovian movie, and again, this is sudsy and being pretentious, but you start with the Wizard World Cup, which is Quidditch, and it's fun and it's explosive, and there's a terrorist attack, and it's horrible and it's dark and it's bleak. Then Harry Potter proving to be a Quidditch player should have been the final scene. But that's the first skill, right? Like, if you're going to do a parallel movie, the Chekhov's gun should have been that it matters that everyone could have done Quidditch, and then he's against the Bulgarian Quidditch player at the final challenge.
Wait, are you talking about at the end of the movie?
Yes, because that's
I disagree, because everyone at the Triwizard Tournament, the whole point is that it's a random selection, so everyone has their own talents.
Then why start with the Wizard World Cup?
You mean the Triwizard Tournament?
The Triwizard Tournament
the World Cup, literally where you're flying around in Quidditch. Harry Potter wins the first mission with a dragon because he can fly on a wand, right? On a broom, rather, right?
Well, but the reason for the Quidditch World Cup is to, again, introduce that there are more countries that are involved than England. You get introduced to that a little bit more, and they have mentioned the Quidditch World Cup before, so you're being introduced there. You're being introduced to Barty Crouch Jr., who becomes important. You're being, in the books, introduced to Winky, who arguably is one of the most important characters in the book that's left out of the movies entirely and is a huge plot hole. And you're introduced to Victor Crumb and why he is the celebrity that he is. So
my argument is not that, because I agree with you there. But my point is that scene where Harry Potter flies in Quidditch should be the final scene, the final challenge of the Quidditch World Cup, because that's the only time where it's established that he's a Quidditch player and he's fascinated in the World Cup, but then he proves himself as an actual athlete at the end of the movie.
But half of the stuff that he does in his trial with the dragons that isn't described in the movie, he learns and he tries because he saw Crumb do it at the Quidditch World Cup. He learns several new moves that he's able to practice over time. And then he goes and he's able to use those. And Crumb is a dipshit who's being taught by an old Death Eater that somehow managed to be a headmaster at a
and
school
he's trying to have sex with someone 5 years younger than him.
She's 3 years younger than him. But also, but he also has somebody that's like, well, what are your strengths? How can you do this? And in the book, it talks about the fact that he was struggling at learning the Accio charm, and he went to Hermione and he was like, I need help, and she's like, yeah, I've been telling you that. And like,
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying, wouldn't it have been better if it was the last challenge?
No, I love the maze. I love that the maze brings all of that together.
I was half surprised.
I like the maze too.
I was half surprised that there wasn't Jack Nicholson in there going, Danny!
So do you mean that you would want you want the mermaids before the dragons?
Yes, because to me it feels like it matters more that he can fly against.
Yeah, I mean, the mermaid one was a little bit easier, but I guess it required a clue, I guess.
To me, it makes just sense character development wise. I'm not disagreeing with any of the challenges.
Isn't the mermaid one the only one that came with a clue?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we not find that a little
that's
bit
not true, because Hagrid said, there's a dragon. I'm going to make out with this tall woman, but you should watch this.
But that wasn't a clue.
Look this way, son.
But that wasn't a clue, though. That was all of the professors cheating.
So I'll have
everyone cheat.
In the books, Karkaroff followed them out to the woods, and that's how Harry knew, like, that they saw it, and that he needed to tell Cedric because everyone else knew.
So speaking of Hagrid making out with Elizabeth Debicki in that one scene, no, I don't know who that actress was.
I'm going to say a thing that's going to sound really bad.
I like taller women than men.
I love that Hagrid and Madame Maxime did not have a falling out in the movies. I'm really glad that they cut that part out of the book because it makes my heart super, super happy.
Right, because in the book, he called her half giant, and she was all offended.
And she is, and she got offended, and because she didn't want people to know, and with the stuff, and then she stopped talking to him, and he was heartbroken, and it just. I don't want Hagrid to be hurt, so I'm really happy that they took that out.
Here's a big thing that I remember. Yes. Shut your cake hole. I've got a point.
We love Hagrid.
Well, I've actually got a point to make about the relationship in this movie. Like, in Prisoner of Azkaban, I felt like the kids were actually being kids that were age appropriate. And I remember very, very vividly about how the whole... Something about a hole.
No, it said making fun of the handicapped giant.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. There was like this 10-foot tall person that I graduated high school. No, there wasn't.
He grew up in the Red Lodge.
Well, I'll have to say
he played football with us.
I'll have to say the rest of this backwards, I guess. But by the way, it's the black and white lodge in the red room. But anyway, I remember distinctly about how the big thing about this was, oh, Harry's got a crush on a girl. That can't possibly happen. And that was like this whole big thing where it's like, well, who could that possibly be? Because it's apparently a character we've been introduced to before. That was something that really they were using to hype up the book. And in here, it's Cho Chang, by the way. But in the book, I got the sense that, he was a 14-year-old kid with a crush trying to explain properly just how he was, well, Cho, I fancy you. I didn't get that sense in the movie at all. I really didn't.
Well,
I mean, even the Yule Ball. You didn't get the sense that he thought Cho was cute?
I got that sense, but I didn't really feel like he was a 14-year-old child. I felt like he was somebody acting like a 14-year-old child doing it.
He was a 15-year-old acting like a 14-year-old. But
he looked over his shoulder, he saw her, and they started playing.
He saw her
I will never find another lover as sweeter than you. He saw her
at the snack cart on the train, and they smiled at each other, and it was really cute. He saw her throughout the school and at the tables, and they smiled, and he got the pumpkin juice went down his
It's just
chin.
been a while since
his
Daniel's...
They all laughed at him, and she was like, "Stop! Don't laugh at him!" And
it's just
come
been
on!
a while.
I thought it was so convincing.
It's just been a while since Suzzy's flirted with a 14-year-old.
Thank God.
About 17 years. Well,
Daniel, thank you for that. We all appreciate that about you. That you are a beautiful, age-appropriate man. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being a trustworthy person that way.
Hey, Tegan, how you doing?
Tegan is age appropriate.
That's right.
She is not 14.
No, I'm not.
She has a job. I'm looking at her job uniform right now. She is a grown, independent,
25?
beautiful woman.
Yeah, I am.
Yes, you are.
Hey, Kelly, is there something? No, well, like,
No, I love my friends.
Don't tell him things.
That you're appropriate or grown.
She's wearing clothing.
Oh, sorry, my bad. No, Daniel, she's with me. She's totally naked. It's fine.
of course.
We called it again.
Well, like, the most honest interpretation of that is, honestly, it's Tina Belcher and Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, we'll get to Myrtle looking at his penis in a second.
Dude, that was so totes and approps.
I know. I was like,
I don't care who
seriously?
you were.
Seriously?
Because
And she'd
you
already
couldn't
looked
see
at
it.
Cedric.
Even if she was 15, that's still totes and approps. Like, there's
She'd already
no
looked at
reason
Cedric,
that
too. She was
exactly.
like, I'll just look at all the boys.
No reason.
Gathering them bubs, and you're just like, girl.
Also, in the book, like, not that bathtub wasn't super impressive or whatever,
Yeah,
but,
it
like,
was.
in the books, it's like an Olympic pool
Yeah.
with multicolor scents and bubbles. Like, come on.
So,
I was on swim team. If I had multicolor scents and bubbles in my pool, I wouldn't swim laps. I would just, like, sit there. But
Put
that would be
bubbles
pretty
over your
amazing.
bits. The old bubble bits spell.
all right. So basically,
Oh,
the story
come on.
structure.
Everyone did that as a kid. Put all
Bas-
your bubbles where they need to be. It's fine.
I had a shampoo bottle over my crotch. You're just like,
I don't actually use regular bubble bath bubbles. I don't feel like they bubble up enough because as soon as like
Palmolive.
I have oily skin, so as soon as it hits them, they don't work. I actually use like rose scented cheap ass shampoo because it does
girl,
better.
hun. I use like old Palmolive. I go to Kroger, whatever's on sale. Hell, it smells like lavender this week on my balls. And just like squirting.
in terms of adolescence, and I'm appealing to Nick here, the movie Bring It On was very important to 12-year-old Daniel. Please do that at some point in Cineprov.
We'll do it.
Hey,
We'll also
it
do
was important
she's.
to me too, but because I was a cheerleader.
Ah, well,
What's the one where it turns out she's a dude pretending to be a girl? She's a
the
girl.
man.
Yeah, she's the man. We got to do she's the man and she's all that.
Amanda Bynes, right?
Yep. And the way she explains she's a girl is not saying I'm a girl. It's just she flashes people, and you're like, "Hey, boobles," and you're just like,
well, we
Boobles.
we need to get back into the narrative structure of this movie because it's so
Okay,
obvious. It's a
so
Triwizard.
for you, I will interrupt you because you're an asshole.
Oh, of course.
But we begin with the Wizard
didn't
World
say that.
Cup, and the thing is, we haven't really talked about how this goes down because again, remember
Porky.
this is
a manky old boot.
well, and this is 2005. We're 4 years after 9/11, and we just started our third war of the year. But like it ends with David Tennant putting a skull with a snake in the air,
Mos Mortra.
which matters because immediately a
starts
dude with a mustache blames children.
It's the first time that we see the Dark Mark. And what happened
And like
is-
the legit Death Eaters.
Yes.
Who come and burn the
There
camp.
was a drunken joke by a past group of terrorists that basically ruined the World Cup for everybody else. And a person that had been in hiding for a long time decided that those people having a good time weren't real. They weren't really showing their colors. They were just having a good time. And a lot of this backstory is coming from the book. So I'm just kind of filling in the spots for you guys. So he comes out and he casts the Dark Mark. Because the Death Eaters had gotten together. They had played some jokes on some people. They had lit some fires. There was a lot of damage from this group of people that I think if you guys remember last episode, Daniel said were able to absorb themselves back into society.
Right.
So you have one particular person who doesn't appreciate people that hide from what they did and who they were and or maybe went unpunished. So he puts what's called the Dark Mark in the sky.
Right.
Throughout the movie, we learn that the Dark Mark is a literal tattoo that Lord Voldemort, or you know who, required all of his Death Eaters to wear on their left arms. So,
And they don't explain that in the movie.
they don't explain it in the movie, and
we'll argue about this for a bit, but like I have to like emphasize the fact that the plot starts out with this movie where we see none of the Dursleys, which we haven't said this episode.
Oh, which thank God. I mean,
it
Yeah,
starts straight off with Harry being at Ron's place.
He wakes up at Ron's, yeah.
Which unfortunately loses a big scene with the Dursleys because actually Mr. Weasley comes to pick up Harry and he uses flue powder and they have a fake fireplace. So he has to blow it out. And then, of course, the twins wreak some havoc that isn't discussed at all in this movie, which is super unfortunate.
I give
That was
credit
pretty funny.
for this movie
Yeah, it
for
was.
3 reasons. First is that the twins, I love them as characters, and they give an effort to make them characters because you can cut a lot from this book to make a movie. They don't cut them much.
Well, and in this movie, they make them very twin. You know what I mean?
They
They're
complete
always
each
shown
other's
together. They
sentences.
say the same thing at the same time. They lean at the same time. They do things at the same time. They make them very like creepy twin twins.
Queefy.
No,
oh,
not that.
boy. Oh, boy.
Not that. They don't have the right parts for that. So
I understand English. But I will
Quick, sisters!
But I will say this carries on from the previous movie wherein magic is magical, right? Like Harry arrives, they have to explain what a port key is. He lands in a tent, and the tent has extra rooms.
bigger on
and
the
he
inside.
is frolicking through this world because he's happy to be here.
And he's seeing Quidditch in a way that he has never seen Quidditch. He's so talented at this sport, and he's seeing it on a professional level.
In a way that drops the old jaw, which is the
Yes.
important thing. And that
You are
no.
making really creepy sounds.
Because
I'm sorry.
I've known Daniel long enough to know that he's taken a silent shit. No, but my point here is, if you cut out the previous 3 movies, this movie would stand at this point.
I don't know. I really don't think so.
You need the magic backdrop, obviously. So
This movie was kind of weird. Just in terms of how it was formatted, what they cut out of the book. I mean,
yeah, it felt incongruous if you didn't have some backstory.
right.
I think this more than any of the others felt very much, but you need to understand.
Can we get into the Triwizard Tournament competitions proper?
Okay, so
Yeah, can we run through really fast?
wait. So to catch up, when they come to school, they've announced that there's a new tournament.
Which
The
is
tournament
never really explained what that is and why it's important. It's
Nope.
just there's a
Or
Triwizard.
the fact that they took like 70 years off from doing it because people kept dying.
Yes.
Because
Kids
it's-
kept dying.
And we know that it's a millennial tradition. At this point, it's been 1,000 years, but we don't know when it happens, why it's going to stop. But for whatever reason, they decided after He Who Should Not Be Named has come back, we should do something horribly dangerous with students.
Hasn't come back yet. They don't know.
How dare you? Because in the first episode, we have a snake that is clearly him.
Well,
And the
we
second
have
movie-
Professor Quirrell in the first one that's hosting him, and then in the second one we have the past version of him that shows up in the Chamber of
But
Secrets.
you're relying on the fact that Dumbledore has A, reported that to the Ministry, and B, that they've taken him seriously,
Oh,
which
shit.
we know.
You're right. This is a Catholic movie, so we don't tell anyone anything about it.
Exactly.
Okay, you're right.
And
No,
also,
you're right.
and also, even if we do tell people, it's not real.
It's okay. He's an Irish.
So,
We'll get to. But
but they decide it's a good idea to bring it back this year anyway because reasons.
and so what we're supposed to do is everyone who feels like they're qualified, and they have to be at least a 4th year.
No, they have to be 17.
17. Okay, sorry. Throw their name into the cup.
Yeah, and the
And-
twins are pissed because they're going to be 17 in 4 months, but they're not 17 with the thing with the stuff.
and then they get turned into the old banker guy from
yeah,
Mary Poppins.
so they take an age
Aging
potion
spell. Yeah.
to try to get past the age line that Dumbledore drew, and everyone who in the book, you know that it doesn't really matter which spell that you use, but everyone that fails gets a spectacular beard. And Dumbledore tells the twins that they have the most spectacular beard of anyone that's tried to cheat the system.
That's right. And the next day, at what I would imagine is like the snack at the end of the night, they draw out the names, and it turns out to be the guy for the Quidditch World Cup from Bulgaria. It turns out to be the hottest French woman. It turns out to be
Fleur Delacour.
And Cedric Diggory do.
Cedric. Do you guys watch Princess Sophia? Because for the first season and a half, Sophia calls the magician, whose name is Cedric, she calls him Cedric, and he keeps going, Cedric, Cedric. And I feel like Cedric right now, and you two gentlemen are Sophia. It's not Cedric, it's Cedric.
Hey,
Princess
lady friend, how many N's are at the end of my name?
Princess Sophia.
You know what that spells? That spells a lot of assholes spelling my name wrong. So you can go fuck off.
Princess Sophia, isn't that what Kate Hudson nicknamed Matt McConaughey's penis in that one movie?
No, it was... Oh my God, was it? Because it's also a Disney TV series.
There's something that vibrates and takes 2D batteries that's going to be called Cedric soon. What? Hey, girl.
Is it your trash can? Because if your vibrator takes 2D batteries, I pray for you.
You gotta fire it up like a diesel engine, like ding 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 ding.
Tegan's like dying. He's like, what just happened? She's like, I thought I could escape to the bathroom, but then I come out with D battery dildos. What do I do?
Impressive.
It's okay. You're a wizard, Harry. That could also be in Boogie Nights, Daniel.
I mean, that's the name of my dildo. His name's Harry, so.
Oh.
Is it clean shaven or not?
Yeah,
clean shaven.
Ironic.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm not going
My
there.
fleshlight is called McGonagall. What?
It can morph into a cat and a woman.
It's both things because it's supposed to.
Oh.
Okay, so
After the Triwizard Tournament turns into a Centennial Olympic Park, we
they
move
all
on.
magically end up back at Hogwarts.
Well, there's three challenges. I feel like Sean
You call
Connery in The
Hogwarts
Last
bacon
Crusade.
bits?
No.
I feel like Sean Connery in The Last Crusade. 3 challenges of the most lethal combinations.
Or you could just be Barty Crouch and you could say it the right way.
I could, but I'm not going to. I prefer to be Henry
Hey,
Jones
Kelly, would you
Sr.
like me to use my sonic screwdriver?
Oh,
okay.
goodness. No, I don't need screwdrivers. That sounds painful.
So there's 3 challenges real quick, and the movie doesn't really dwell on like the dramatic build up to them beyond just them trying to figure out what it is. The first is
they're done step by step, right?
Right. The first is like them having to steal golden dragon eggs from actual dragons.
Actual mother dragon.
Yes.
Which you miss out on in the movie, but they are female dragons that are breeding, that they have brought in. Ron's brother, Charlie.
Oh,
brought
Charlie.
in from Romania.
Charlie.
Brought it from Romania.
And we get the thing that there's 4 dragons, of course, because there's 4 wizards. Yes. But that Horntooth is
Horntail.
The
Horntail.
Hungarian
Hungarian
horntail.
Horntail. And another thing that we really miss in the movies is that in the books, you actually get to talk to Charlie. And Hagrid says, oh, well, how's Norbert? And Norbert is not in the challenge, but Charlie's like, oh, you mean Norberta? Because she's female.
Oh.
So for all of you people that are hoping to get your trivia questions right, just based on our podcast, it's Norberta.
Well, but my point was, the fact is, Harry is going to get the hardest part of every challenge.
Obviously.
But that's established here.
And the second one he makes hard because he decides to be like ethical.
The hero, yeah.
But doesn't he still get...
he
comes in
place
second
for
place.
Good moral fiber.
No. My point was going to be that they intentionally make it that he has 2 targets, right? Because both Hermione and Ron are taken.
No.
Yes and no.
Well,
but
because
Hermione,
he doesn't know, so yes.
But he does know that they're taken from his, like, because he
when
asks,
he gets down there, he knows.
No. But before then, he asks where they are, and they've been taken. And he doesn't know where they are.
No, they're not there, and you're getting that from the books because they don't actually say that in the movie.
That's right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because he's walking down and he's talking to Neville, and he was like, "Well, you're a right better friend than Ron and Hermione because I don't know where they are."
They're not even
and then
here.
He gets
yeah.
down there and he sees both of them. And he says he tries to rescue both of them, and he says, "Well, they're both my friends," and they say you can't. And then Everyone else comes by except Fleur. So then he saves Fleur's sister.
Which makes no sense to me because they don't let him take Hermione because he can only take one. But then they let them
Only
take
one.
Floor's
But they
little
don't,
sister.
though. They attack him.
The Grindylows attack him,
books.
not the mermaids.
In the books.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
The mermaids also
You
give him
should-
a hard time, and then the Grindylows attack. But I don't think the Grindylows are in the book. I think those are just for movie effects. And just as a background, just so you guys know, while Harry was underwater, they actually filmed each of those seconds, or each of the time underwater, 10 seconds at a time, so that his face wouldn't actually strain.
Can I
will
just
say,
go ahead and
too,
point
to
something
calm your
out?
Tits for 1 second.
Calm my tits?
I mean, they're
But
out
I
of
wore my
control.
good bra.
I mean, it's the best of bras. But
That's
I will
what
say
Jonathan said.
here, I mean, they look fantastic.
Thank you.
I will
I'm in
say,
a high neck t-shirt, guys, just so you know.
I mean, we can't say a thing other than the subtlety and the signals on the side. The
Yeah.
insignias, which are beautiful.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
it's a cool shirt.
Have the
Dumbledore.
You've got
The
the, Deathly
lion,
Hallows
the
right
Gryffindor
there.
lion.
my Golden Snitch, the Deathly Hallows, 2 wands, platform 9 3/4, and the Lightning Bolt Scar.
And by
Oh
the
my God.
by, if
In my
those of
time
you
planner.
who do this kind of printing don't have a pair of panties right over the crotch that has a golden snitch to aim, you should.
To
Golden
aim?
Snitch is well, that's exactly where men should aim for. Is for a
Okay, so
girl's
here's the
golden
thing.
snitch.
So I have a tattoo of a
I
have
Oh,
a tattoo of the snitch on my hip, and 75% of the time when I tell people that I have a tattoo of the golden snitch, they go, "You have a tattoo on your snatch?" And I'm like, "No.
Your golden
No,
snatch.
wrong. Although when I turn 50, I will get a tattoo of Harry Potter reaching for the golden snitch as he's on his broomstick on my left butt cheek, so that the broom goes right into my snatch. And that's my 50th birthday dream.
Well done.
Which I just said to however many people listen to this.
Almost 7.
Jonathan now has to let me do it because it's out in the universe. People
Yeah.
are going to expect pictures when I
do
turn
like the
50
idea
and wrinkly.
of a
And
wand pointing at the clit.
I mean, it's like a direction.
So
I knew
the
a
second
guy-
challenge.
SEO clitoris.
I knew a guy who got hay tattooed right above his dick.
That's
Oh my
And
god.
it
Kelly,
was really
Kelly,
because he showed me
Kelly.
at the pool, and I was like, "Could you not?"
Kelly, you said you would never tell that to anyone.
Oh no, it wasn't you. He got the inspiration from you, but he went to Clemson, so he actually has a brain.
Oh! Because that's the kind of thing someone with hay in their head would say if I only had a brain.
Exactly. I love you, Daniel.
I love
He
you
followed
too.
that yellow brick road.
But he did
the
actually go to
whole-
Clemson, and that is why.
I-
His parents were both pastors.
It's okay. I went
Well
to school
done.
with Ben Roethlisberger. And
He
he's
dated
dumb
a
as
friend of
toast.
mine.
You're fine.
All right, so the competitions. I'm sorry.
Nothing is more circuitous than trying to find the clitoris.
It's
That's-
not that hard.
No, it's right front and center.
That's what she said.
Oh, that's a whole other problem, my friend.
All right. Well, in
You may
fact,
not
that
pay
is
for that,
the
guys.
second challenge in the Triwizard Tournament. You have to find the clitoris. No.
That would have been a better challenge.
SEO clitoris. Oh
Maybe not for 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
no! I don't know. I think Hermione would have appreciated it by the end of that horrible dance.
I mean, she was dating a
Yeah.
17-year-old, and Ron did say, pretty sure friendship is not what's on his mind. So. Magical cooperation, right?
Well,
Isn't that what they call
I'm
it?
going to
That's
say
the weird
three
thing.
things about this movie we haven't talked about. Someone needs to find a hairstylist for the men. Suddenly, everyone needs to take Pamprin. Except for Hermione, who's in control the entire movie. The boys could not be bitchier to each other. And then finally...
No, they were such asshats. Ron
That's
is like, you could have told your best friend.
Yeah.
And like,
Ron
I'm
became
sorry,
a whiny
but
little
like,
bitch.
could you have a sandier vagina right now? Calm yourself.
And then finally,
Calm your
someone
tits,
needs
Ron.
to just jerk off because everyone is like looking at and by the way, those Indian twins, they're gorgeous, and no one
Beautiful.
could look at them. And I know, J.K.
Oh my
Rowling's
god!
fine.
And then one of the Bulgarian guys comes up to Pavardi and he's like, "Can I have your arm?"
Yeah.
And she's
do you
like,
want to dance?
"Arm, leg, whatever you want. I'm yours." And her sister
Yep.
is like, "Fuck you, bitch." like,
Yeah, she was leaving
why
a
would
wet
you
spot
leave
on
me
the couch.
here?
And here's the thing, man. I'm sorry. I know that Ron has a hard-on for Hermione, but someone needs to make a move on anyone.
But really, like, did he even know that, though? Because he's sitting there and he goes, they're making fun of Neville. And she's like, well, he has someone. And then Ron is like, well, Hermione, you're a girl. And she goes, well spotted. And my husband, who is British, he's first generation American, but he is British.
His monocle fell into his cocktail.
It did. It fell into his tea because we were watching it at 2:00, which is tea time. So my husband's monocle fell into his tea and he went, oh. And we both had a really good laugh about it because it's just, I don't know if that was scripted, but part of my heart thinks that it wasn't because she's just like, we'll spot it. And she does it so well. She delivers it so well. He's like, and then Ron goes, well, it's one thing for a bloke to go alone, but for a girl, it's just embarrassing. And Jonathan
I was
goes,
like, you're a dick.
Well,
like,
that's, yeah. And Hermione gets pissed off and my husband goes, well, good job being emotional, Hermione. And I went, excuse me, Ron's a fucking dick.
he's being a dickhead.
And he goes, well, of course he is, but why is she emotional about it? And I was like, are you kidding me right now?
See,
like, do you want to do this right now?
You
Let's
shut
go.
your whore mouth. Did you ever have a Sadie Hawkins dance at your high school?
No.
Do you?
No.
But let's
Really?
be honest, any dance I had, I asked my partner. Because
Really?
I was not going to be bothered to wait around.
See,
The one time I waited and got asked on a date was in 5th grade, and it was Johnny Studdle. And, huh?
Nothing.
No, it was Johnny Studdle. And it was the guy that I had the crush on forever. He asked me to the date. I got super excited about it because I'd had a crush on forever, and everyone knew that. I mean, I was in 5th grade at a private Catholic school. There were 13 of us in middle school. From 5 to 7th grade, there were 15 of us. So, like, super excited, right? The guy I have a crush on asked me out. So, I, of course, said yes. It was the same day that I started my period. I felt so grown up.
I mean,
so that night he calls and he
gross.
goes, he calls me and he goes, well, I'm not actually going with you. I asked you for a joke.
Oh, dude, she's all that?
Well, actually, funny story.
Did you take your hair down and turn out to be hotter?
In November of last year. So I was 11. So of course, after all this happened, I wrote him a note.
In November of last year?
Yes. So when I was 11, I wrote him a note and I gave it to him. So November of last year, he sent me a message on Facebook that I didn't see until like February because we weren't friends anymore. So it went to like the other category.
Yeah.
So I opened it, and it was, I shit you not, a picture of this note that I had given him when I was 11. And it's one of those notes that, like, when you're a middle schooler, keeps you up at night.
Oh, sure.
Because you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I gave someone notes to the lyrics of Heartbreaker.
Ooh!
So it keeps you up at night, right? So he sends me a picture of this, and I'm like, oh
he
my
was
God,
the right kind of sinner.
It's been 20 years. Where did this come from? And he was like, I said, how do you even still have this? He was like, it was in a box at my mom's house that I was unpacking to like throw stuff away. And I just thought that I should show you. And I'm like, oh my God, I literally used like part of the lyrics to Heartbreaker. And at the end was like, if you ever want a real relationship, just call me. At 11. And I'm 31. I'm 32 now, but at the time I was 31, and I was just like, oh my God, it's been 20 years that I've had nightmares about this note, and just told myself that there's no way this was going to survive 20 years, and it did, and I hate everything. Like, how does that even happen?
That is an all-timer.
I kept the message too. Like I sent it to one of my friends that I'm actually like still in touch with from back then. And I said, you remember Johnny, right? Because like this is also the kid that like pissed me off, and I must have a habit of this, but I apparently threw a chair at him and told him to fuck off in my Catholic school and got suspended for 2 days because my principal asked me what I said, and I told her I didn't want to say it unless I was in her office, and she pushed me to say it in the lobby, so I screamed it. She was like, go to my office. And I was like, so I wanted to be in the first place. And so then I got in extra trouble. And my mom was like, so You can't say that. Do you want a new bathing suit? So, anyways, this was before that. I'm like,
am I allowed to share at least one weird high school story to demonstrate just how stupid kids are back there?
As long as it demonstrates to how stupid boys are at Hogwarts, yeah.
How embarrassing are you?
Well, it's kind of a half and half, if I may say. I don't know what the circumstances were. I was like a sophomore, junior in high school, and there was like this one girl who she wasn't in my class. I must have been a junior. She must have been a sophomore, and I think she made a bet with her friends where she was like just going up to random guys to prove a point that all of them were repressed and going like, "Hey, do you want to have sex with me?" And all of them were like, "Wait, what? I mean, I don't know." Oh, well, that proves my point. And then she like asked 5 or 6 people. I was one of them, and I'm like, "Wait, what? What do you mean? Like now?" I don't know, but apparently I helped demonstrate a point that all high school people are repressed.
Sex in high school.
I feel like that's a really dumb question to ask people in high school, though.
That's what happened. I don't know.
No, I'm not blaming you. I just feel like
as a millennial, feel like we've left the age of pen and paper, weirdly sexual notes.
I wrote in green crayon a pretty weird note.
I had so many notes with my high school
I'm pretty sure I borrowed
girlfriend.
that crayon
I
from
didn't
my brother.
read most of them
because all my stuff was still in my locker.
I burned them at one point.
So the
My
third
mom was
competition,
in a red van, and I got out and I handed it to him. He was in his van. His mom loved me.
She could swear she felt me hugging her in other classes. It was
what?
weird.
That got weird.
And she also said she could feel me like intimately in other. It was weird. It was weird.
So
Yeah,
the third
she had
competition
are we back
in
at
the
Hogwarts? Like,
the,
is
the
this like,
third
are you
competition
casting,
in the
like,
Triwizard
weird
Tournament
spells on people?
is a maze.
Ew.
It is a maze.
Although there is actually a romance novel about a vampire that can do that from a distance. So maybe you're just a vampire. Are you Robert Pattinson?
I mean, maybe.
Now you're Batman too.
Something needs to be sucked. Girl.
Ew. That's not where that was supposed to go. Okay, Daniel, what were
Where
you
was
going
it
to say?
supposed to go then? It's a vampire thing.
I was just going to say that at the final challenge of the Triwizard Tournament is a maze. It's like The Shining.
It's amazing.
It is indeed
an amazing maze.
They have to actually get the cup from like wherever the ending of this maze is.
And by the
Matt,
by,
that Professor Moody put the cup in the middle of the maze, so only he knows where the position is, right? So Hagrid helped build the maze, which for whatever reason he didn't cheat about.
and by the by, you should tell us who Moody is. We haven't talked about him.
God, yeah. So Mad-Eye Moody is the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher.
They just keep having a vacancy there for some reason.
It's cursed, right? So Mad-Eye Moody is an ex-Auror from the Ministry of Magic, and an Auror is basically a part of magical law enforcement.
Yeah.
So they're basically magical SWAT. They're kind of like the upper tier of magical law enforcement. So Mad-Eye Moody had a large hand in putting a lot of the old Death Eaters behind bars, questioning them. But he also, which we learned from the books, we don't get a lot of this. Obviously, we don't get any of this back history in the movies, but from the books, we know that Mad-Eye Moody also was perpetually paranoid. So everything around him was a threat.
I will only disagree because I feel like even if they didn't say it, he is twitchy as hell in this movie.
A lot of that is because the Polyjuice Potion is wearing off. But yes, you're right. He does constant vigilance, right?
And we haven't. Polyjuice Potion happened 2 movies ago. Chamber.
Yes.
Right.
Chamber.
But in this movie, we have this dude who's like scratching at his chest almost. He's twitchy. We're introduced to him actually in a magic class doing Defense Against the Dark Arts, where he has this spidery thing that he grows giant.
When he first walks in, the ceiling, which is bewitched to the night sky, actually rejects him.
Right.
In the movie. And that is actually a really nice touch because
It is.
we don't get that in the book, but I think in the movies it's kind of a really nice way to
Remove 200
showcase
pages almost, right?
yeah
Right.
to showcase that there's something up, right?
And in the class, he grows this spidery claw serpent
Yes.
thing, giant, and he
That
shows
was horrifying.
It is horrifying, and it does happen in the books in a similar way, although he does kill 2 of them.
Well, and I think what made you most interested in this is, of course, it's mostly David Tennant, but the actor who plays Mad-Eye Mooney.
But I didn't know David Tennant when I first watched this.
Well, sure, but the actor who plays him nails the fuck out of this position.
Oh, Mad-Eye is
Great.
He is amazing. And just trivia, because I might forget it, but he's actually the real father of the actor that ends up playing Bill Weasley in the later movies.
Right.
Which is super fun. But anyway, yeah, no, Mad-Eye he's spot on, except his leg,
Yes.
which I would love to talk about.
Do it.
So I think as some of you guys know from the last one, I am an amputee. And I did start watching all of these after my accident, so I was late to the game, right? But Mad-Eye is kind of fun because I read about his character before I actually saw the movie. So his leg in the book is described as kind of a clawed-toed, what you would think of as like a clawed leg to a table.
You're right.
And I loved that description. So when I saw it in the movie, and they do show it, which I really, really enjoy, but
Right.
they show it as a little bit more mobile. Like kind of that's the dream for like prosthetics, right? We don't have as much movement as say arms because you don't need it.
Right.
Per se, but it's awesome. And yes, I have done a Mad-Eye Moody cosplay, and no, I ran out of time and I didn't do it today, so there won't be pictures tonight. But
Was it as rawly sexual as?
I mean, I used a corset for my Mad-Eye, of course. So you get this great Mad-Eye, but no, I love his character because this actor really leans into it, and I think
everything, the limp too, like he has
he
a
leans
hard,
into all
like,
of it,
grisly.
Yeah, and I think the way they illustrate or the way they CG the eye into this is fantastic. The way it moves,
does.
and
It holds up.
yeah, it really holds up, and he can see through his head, which is magical, which is shown, and hear across classrooms, and throws a piece of chalk. And I flat out told my husband, this is why I can't be a teacher, because both a little bit of that, like, blonde ginger going on, so I would throw chalk at kids too, and that's why I don't teach classes, because you should know better. But anyways,
so you can take a hard drink here. When I was in high school, I had a Christian Scriptures, which is New Testament class, with a guy named Mike Davis. And Mike
had Mr. Frost was mine.
Mike Davis had been in a cult called the Way International. And as a man who at the time I think was in his mid-40s, his grandmother was a Jew. And so at the age of 28, he was circumcised as to her wishes.
At 28?
At 28.
Holy
and
shit.
To your story, I was in a class with him in the theology department, and a kid forgot her Bible, and so he was throwing Bibles at people who did not have their Bibles, and Mike Davis is not employed at the school anymore.
I mean, I was just like threatening to throw chalk, and I'm missing a leg. I'm not missing half the skin on my dick, throwing Bibles at people. Like, I feel like there's a big difference there.
That's true. And that's why
Also,
he had a
how much
prosthetic penis. What?
How much did he have to pay for that surgery? Because they normally won't circumcise you as you're older unless you have a medical reason for it.
Novocaine, go do it, and then you just cut off 2/3. You go from a turtleneck to a collar.
No, you're kidding though, right? Like that's not.
No, that's 100% true.
Did we mention that Voldemort comes back in this movie?
And he's circumcised.
He clearly must be because he's super unhappy.
He's
but
cut.
He looks like Michael Jackson with his nose.
This is it's a weird showcase, I think.
Well, and this one in particular looks very like Snuffly Sam.
Can we talk about the graveyard really fast?
No.
Do it.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
obviously.
so Cedric and Harry.
Cedric the Entertainer. Sorry, go ahead.
Cedric.
No, wait. I'm not going to stop you because I hate you, but because we haven't talked about the other two challenges.
We did. I mean,
we did.
The mermaids and the maids.
What's the first one?
The dragons, where they have to
dragons,
steal the
they're
egg.
in an arena.
They all get the eggs.
Harry summons his fireball. They fly around.
Firebolt.
Man.
Firebolt.
His fireballs. Oh, no, sorry. Sorry. Ron has the fireballs because he's a redhead.
Yeah, the fire. So he didn't. Gives the curtains, match the drapes.
Yeah,
so, Harry summons
and in
his
this movie, they're
fireball.
particularly shaggy. Oh, girl. And we have this montage where the dragon is ruining Hogwarts.
So stupid. It doesn't happen in the book. It's a waste of space. They just wanted to spend the rest of their CG budget flying around.
And that's what the rest of the movie is terrible.
It's awful.
Well, if you don't spend it, then the studio takes it back and you don't get as big a budget next year.
And I explained this to people who had never seen Harry Potter movies before because I teach students now that were born after 9/11.
No.
We're not that old.
Yes, we are, because a high schooler who's in 9th grade is 14.
Oh, fuck. We are that old.
Yeah.
No, I was in 8th grade.
So was I.
You know what happens when you're 14?
I was in chorus.
14 ago is 2000.
Wait, what?
If you're 14, you were born in 2005 or 2006.
But that's when I graduated high school.
It sure is. I'm 35. I've been teaching high school for 13 years.
Sorry.
It's okay. She's
gone
just
now.
farting off.
Well, we've either way, despite that aging controversy, I mean, we've mentioned what the last two challenges are.
The first one is the dragon. The second one,
the final one is the maze.
The
Mermaids,
mermaids.
Second one's
and Harry Potter figures out a way to die because of Neville, who has an herb.
The gillyweed, right?
Gillyweed.
Gillyweed.
Gives you-
which
I'm
he
just-
steals.
gives you gills.
He steals from Snape's stores. Can we talk about, there's no way.
Actually, they explain that at the end of the movie.
They do, you woman. Go ahead.
So Mad Eye Moody
Steals it.
is helping through this whole process of getting Harry, getting his name pulled from the cup, getting him through the dragon stuff, he's getting him through all this so he can get to the end to get the cup, which is a port key to the graveyard where Voldemort
So that Voldemort can get Harry's blood.
He explains that he helped, he told everybody about the dragons, and he gave Neville the book that taught him about the gillyweed so that he would know about it. So when Harry asked, he would know what to do.
He gave him the book.
Right.
Neville still had to take it from Snape's storeroom.
Well, I guess, I don't know. I don't really remember if they explained that.
Sense. They don't. Neville had to have stolen it from Snape's storerooms, which is not a thing that Neville would do, which is why I'm pissed off that they left out Winky and Dobby, because in the books, Dobby is the one that gave it to him. Dobby is the one that found him asleep in the library, woke him up 15 minutes before he needed to be there, and gave him the gillyweed. And was like, this is what you need. I overheard the professors talking. I overheard Moody saying, while he knew I was in the space, that this is what you need. But they left that out because they didn't want to have or couldn't afford, because they decided that it was more beneficial to have 10 minutes of a flying bullshit dragon than it was to have Winky and Dobby in the movies.
Either way, it ends with Harry Potter turning into a man.
Basically.
Sexy.
Man.
He just gets gills on the side of his neck. It's not
He
like
gets
grows
gills
fucking
and
fins.
grows webbing in
Turn
his
into fins.
fingers.
Yeah, and his...
Whatever. They still had to film that in 10 seconds at a time. It was not easy for him to do.
Oh my goodness.
Also, when I was at the studio tour, I saw the dummies that they used for Ron and Hermione.
Did it get you wet? Because it was underwater.
I wasn't underwater. And it was not that part that got me wet. It was the whole 6.5 hours and the fact that I was on my honeymoon when I got home that got me wet. And I cried so much on that tour because we did the audio version of it. And so it was Tom Felton, who I've met, talking in my ears. And then when you get to the end the last part of the studio tour in London is this room. It's Ollivander's room, and it's full of wands, and every wand has every actor, every person that was on the cast or crew, every single person that ever touched this movie has a wand in this room, and arguably it's one of the bigger spaces on the tour, and I fucking sobbed. And there are stairs you can like walk up and read them. I mean, it's just
That's so cool.
So,
amazing.
did we mention that the final challenge is to get
Through a maze.
Arpat and Harry into the graveyard where Voldemort's dad is buried, and that's how they bring him back to life?
Yes. So they.
I will give one thing really quick. Pattinson is good in this movie.
Yes, he is.
He did do a good job.
He does a serviceable
He's
job.
convincing. He's convincing.
He doesn't have much.
For the first person that's introduced, first time they ever speak in the series,
But he doesn't speak.
he does.
No, at the beginning when they meet him at the Quidditch
hi.
World Cup, he doesn't say.
Yeah, there's no context to who this guy is. There's no context to the fact that they're the ones that beat Harry Potter.
Well,
in the
and
last
he's
one
one of the
when
few
he fell off of his
Americans in the
broomstick.
whole series because he doesn't have a good control in that English accent. But I will say he nails it. He's charismatic. He's strong. Like, I believe he's in charge.
I thought you were going to leave me there. For
No.
a second, I did too. And I think that's an amazing scene.
I find him ultimately very charming, but like, and again, he's a cliche, but he's a strong silent type, which you don't get a lot in this world because
Well,
he's teens.
He dies. He gets killed.
Well, I mean,
but he dies a fairly
but
heroic death.
He
No,
does.
he doesn't. He just
But
shows...
no. But he is heroic and he's noble because he knows he never would have won if it weren't for Harry. And it's portrayed differently in the movie than it is in the book.
But
But-
even the movie,
In the movie,
yeah.
Harry saves him and he says, "You need to take it." And Harry says, "No, we do it together." And they do. And so it turns into a portkey because ultimately Moody, he imperioused Crumb, and that's why he attacked Fleur. That's why he left Harry alone. Harry knew that because he could see it and told Cedric. Didn't let Cedric attack Crumb for that reason. Saved him there, then competed. Then Cedric was taken down and Harry saved him because Cedric asked him to. And he did. Cedric was going to let him take the cup out of just being noble. And Harry was like, "No, we do it together." And that sucks because I can understand moving forward where Harry's headspace is because he feels like he was responsible for that. Because if he hadn't insisted that they do it together and they take the winning for Hogwarts as Hogwarts and not as separate winners, this never would have happened. So I get that. So then they end up here and you hear Voldemort say, "Kill the spare." He's not even given a name. It doesn't even matter to Voldemort who it is.
And then Wormtongue does so.
Tail. Wormtail.
Wormtongue is Lord of the Rings.
Thank
You're right.
you. Yes.
Wormtail.
Wormtail does it so easily. But then as they're in the graveyard, they go past the giant statue, the Riddle statue, and you can see all the different Tom Riddles with all their dates. They were actually carved improperly, both the names and the dates, and the names and dates were actually CG'd into the movie. Because I saw the actual piece and I was that weird person that went to the tour guide and was like, "That's wrong." And he was like, "Yeah, actually, you're one of the very few people that notice. Every once in a while I'll get someone that asks," but they actually had to CG that into the movie because the prop people didn't know what to put and put it in correctly. And I was like, did they not read? Do they not read? Well, the dates were wrong, and it also said Tom Marvolo Riddle on every line, which is not actually accurate.
That's how that works.
I got pitches.
Either way, after that happens, there's a ritual that brings Voldemort from this like little fetus into a
bone from the father unwillingly taken, flesh from the servant willingly given,
and he literally cuts off his hand and drops it in the pot.
Blood from the enemy.
It sounds
forcefully
like a bad
taken.
Shakespeare parody, like,
yeah.
You know, boiled,
it's kind of a weird,
yeah.
It's a weird kind of potion, but it is all a spell.
And it's one of the first times we get
bone from the father unknowingly given.
Well, and it feels very visceral because we don't get spells in that way outside of a classroom,
Yeah.
right? Like, and because of that, it feels dirty, gritty. Like
Yeah.
it feels very
Oh, it's dark magic.
Unnatural?
I mean,
well,
yeah.
right. But that's what the scene does well because everything else is very polished and clean. Like a woman who's prim and proper saying, "This is how you do these things."
This
And then
is
we're in
how we do it.
And then a grim, like gritty, like, and so we're going to save these things for you, and that's how it feels, and that's why this scene works. Like, and I think it was Sudsy here who mentioned Goldeneye, but like this feels like that scene in Goldeneye where they're in the statue garden. Right?
Yes,
like,
yes.
It's like it's not a graveyard because graveyards feel solemn. This feels forgotten. Like it's
a graveyard
damaged.
to the old Riddle home, which we haven't talked much about, but that's where all of this takes place. Is that Voldemort, after his father and their family, quote unquote, died, there was a mysterious benefactor that kept up with the place, and it was Voldemort his whole life. So yeah, you're right. It is a completely forgotten property with its own private cemetery.
You know what would have been interesting is if there were like some of the Riddle relatives who were still living there, like the Grey Gardens.
Well, if there was almost a zombie-esque corpse, like someone who
Well,
rose...
and you see him at the beginning. I think that's meant to be the gardener. Like
Yeah,
originally,
the
he was
caretaker.
accused of the murders, but he stayed on and was killed at the beginning of the movie in that dream. So there wasn't anyone there after that. But that, I mean, you think about the time that took. No one probably noticed that Frank was dead.
Well, right, but like I think to Suzzy's point, if there was like a Nosferatu, like teethy, someone reaching out as he grabs that, like at the end, like his out is another port key. Like,
Yeah.
if you like have people like clawing at him as he reaches away, like that makes it like 20% more visceral.
I am still a little bit confused about how the Triwizard Cup decided it was going to become a second port key.
Right. Yeah, that didn't make sense to me either.
Was
I'm
it
like,
meant to be?
oh,
Was it maybe cast
Plot.
that way so that Voldemort could touch it and come back? Because you can't operate in or out of Hogwarts, which we find out later. So maybe that's his.
I always
key, as it
assumed.
were, to
I
get
will
back.
say, like
I don't
to
know.
that point, maybe it's just quick and dirty magic. Like, what if it's just like we don't know how to do this, so we just make it operate back and forth between these 2 points, no matter what happens.
I always assumed that the point
Maybe.
was they didn't want to get Voldemort necessarily back into.
But you could be right because they do confiscate the port keys in the book at the Triwizard Tournament or at the Quidditch World Cup.
Yeah, and like to me, if someone is hobbled by their own magic, what if it was just like this works back and forth and that's it, which should never work, but it's just sloppy magic.
I was assuming the point
Right,
was
like-
that it wasn't supposed to get the port key wasn't supposed to get Voldemort out of there. It was to bring Harry to him so that he'd
Yes.
be
Well,
immune.
but that's exactly what it was supposed to do. And Harry was supposed to die. But if it went back to Hogwarts, there had to have been a secondary spell on it, maybe to bring Voldemort,
Was it?
bring somebody.
Because
back.
his when Harry Potter and Voldemort like do the spell thing where like their wands like
Priory
do the
and
weird
Cantatum.
Oh, the
thing, yeah.
Kamehameha.
something
Priory
like that.
and Cantatum.
Yes, that. And like his parents show up. Aren't they the
And
ones
Cedric.
that like tell him to like
Let go.
yeah.
Yeah, so they protect him. So
Maybe they like activated the port key or something like
Oh,
that.
that's a good
I
point.
don't know.
They're
I don't know.
children.
I don't know.
I honestly don't
But
know.
they're the
I feel
ones
like
that
that's-
tell him like, go back.
That's another like hole though in the book and the movie.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, this to me feels much
Not
more like
rolling. What are you
Joseph
doing?
Campbell. Like there's a good side and a bad side, and like this spells a portal between the two of them. And
Yeah, maybe.
no,
I mean, maybe
but,
it does
like,
just.
I
work
will
both
say
ways.
though, in film language, it doesn't matter. It just works, and it makes sense in the film. right? Like,
Okay, but if you read the books, it doesn't make sense because you know that it's a specific spell, and they
right, but
have to, and
you
they
read
account
the books,
for every single one of them.
But you read the books,
And I know that they account for every portkey. And
yes, but does
sometimes
that break this by watching it?
No.
So why do you need the extra explanation? Because the movie's already over 2 hours. I feel like this is a good summation, especially since.
Oh no, it is a good summation, and the question exists whether it's the movie or the book. But I still have the question.
No, I agree with you, but like when they end up at the other end, and like that scene is resolved by the fact that he's holding
Cedric.
Whatever.
I'm so sad.
He's
sobbing
holding
over Cedric's
Arpats,
body, and
when he holds Arpats, that ends the movie. Because what do you need? You need him to feel compassion, and Christ, that's it.
well, that's a big
That's
thing.
the hardest.
Because more than that,
Harry
because
won-
he feels responsible.
Harry
because
won the
it's
tournament.
So,
What else do you want?
It's so sad.
You don't
It was
need
so sad.
65 minutes of explanation of that fuck. No, this is perfect.
No, you don't need explanation. I agree with you. You don't need explanation. It is heartbreaking what happened.
And then the dad runs up and
Oh,
That's my
no.
son, and he's fucking son. God,
and you know what? For the first time in the entire series, Harry isn't blamed for murdering someone.
But Nick, did that not hit you different now that you have a kid?
No.
Because
I
that
agree. I
scene-
agree with you. I just want mourning. With
No,
some...
I'm legitimately asking because every time I watch this movie, I've
Yes.
just watched it. But I have a daughter now, and just watching that scene as a parent with Diggory running, that's my son move. That's my, like, I can't,
No, I agree with
just
you.
can't.
I'm just glad that they don't immediately turn and blame Harry. Like, it's a moment of
No, I'm with
pure
you.
emotion.
It's
Right?
so...
And that's what this movie needs. Some sort of emotional connection.
Yes.
Because the rest of it has been a lot of people with bad haircuts moping. Everyone hates each other. Harry and Ron don't get along. And you know what? I just need someone to make them hug.
There's so much teenage angst.
And you know what?
And then you get to the end of this movie, and it's just...
It's a year too early.
A kid has died.
When I was 16, I started competing with people about my penis, and right, like, but this
I feel
is
like we're both like on different fields of sorrow
No.
now. Like, I'm sad for your penis, but like I'm more sad that Cedric died.
I'm always sad about my penis. But the point about it here is, I like that this movie wraps up with an emotional note, because the whole first act of this movie is about the fact that they're like having a dick measuring contest.
And I think what makes it so much more powerful too is that for the bad guy, or to know who the bad guy is that you're right in the middle of this unbelievable tragedy.
Right.
And you're having this person who should be there with you pulling you out of it.
Right.
And I think that brings us kind of to the end of the movie, that's how we know that Moody isn't who he should be. And
he
it's
regenerates into the 10th Doctor.
it's not expressly
He's in the
said.
trunk.
It's not expressly said in the movie, but it is expressly said in the book that is why Dumbledore brings Snape and McGonagall up with what they have, is because he knew that the real Moody would never have taken him away from that situation. He never would have singled him out. And that's how they knew that something was wrong. Like, I'm sure there were other signs, but that was the main thing that Dumbledore said. And so when they come in, and you can see them getting closer in the glasses in the background, and this, you know, the whole Moody knowing that he was in a graveyard, and all these details that Harry never shared.
All we know at the end is he's back.
He's back.
Well, and like, the other person who has a journey in this is Dumbledore, because like, something that doesn't happen in the book, which happens in this movie, is like, when his name comes out of the cup, he gets throttled across the room by Dumbledore.
Oh my god! Did you put your name in the cup? I mean, the book is calmly. Did you put your... and it's a meme, and everyone's gonna see the meme, and I feel like That's why, at least why I didn't make a point of saying it, because everyone has seen the meme.
It's
but like,
awful.
it's awful.
That's the worst scene in this movie.
I disagree. I kind of like that about Dumbledore in this because,
Why?
he's scared. He's scared.
Of course, he's scared, but he's
I
not.
agree he's scared, but he shouldn't.
But
throw a
Dumbledore is-
child around.
Well,
Dumbledore is
he's
such an
scared and he's also
internally-
angry. Like,
But Dumbledore is such an internalizing type of person. Like, he's constantly scared. He has. I feel like Dumbledore is one of those people that's never knows who to trust. He's constantly scared. He doesn't even know where to put his trust because he's been burned so many times. He can't even trust himself, that he keeps it all internalized. So in the book, yes, calmly, he asked, Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? As a moment of trust for Harry, who also doesn't know what the fuck is happening. To the movie with the whole grab your shirt, back you against a table. Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? Like, that's an entirely different type of emotion. And
Right.
it doesn't make sense for Dumbledore. So
It's
I agree
hard.
with you. It doesn't make sense.
It's a hard scene, especially since, like, one day I would like a true young Dumbledore movie or series, because it just seems like,
You're not satisfied with Fantastic Beasts?
well, but it's a different story because that's a singular plot. I would just love young Dumbledore trying to run a school.
Have you seen the YouTube video of the duel between Dumbledore and Grindelwald? I love that, and I wish that it was more.
Well, I think we should go ahead and wrap up because
Sure.
we're at the end of the movie at this point.
Yes. So we know that Mad-Eye Moody the entire year has been Barty Crouch Jr., who escaped Azkaban, which isn't discussed, but he escapes because Barty Crouch Sr. brings his wife who's dying, and they basically switch places and come out. And in the books, he's kept under a spell and he's babysat by his house elf and all this stuff, and he escapes. And Barty Crouch is actually dead. He's been turned into a bone and buried in the woods, which you don't get. That's why you don't see him after the second challenge.
We're good.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. And then we wrap up the fourth year at Hogwarts.
Sudsy, would you recommend it?
I didn't like this as much as Prisoner of Azkaban as a movie. I mean, if you like the book better, cool. But to me, this just felt like a regression. Like they were once again quoting too much from the book. And for the first time in the series, I'm like going, why didn't they include this from the book? I mean, this was so much better in the book than it was in the movie. I was turning into Kelly, basically.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm so proud. So, Tegan, being on similar lines of me normally, how are you?
I like this movie. I think it had some really cool scenes. I like the essential plot. I feel like, yeah, there's some stuff that they should have put in from the book and other things they could have left out. But overall, I think it's pretty good, and it gets us from one movie to the other. So, it does that job.
I'll go so you can go last. I like this movie. As a movie, it felt like it flowed. It was tight. I feel like not all the questions were answered, but that doesn't need to happen in a movie. If you're reading the books, we're 1,200 pages at least in.
We're way beyond that, I think.
15, 16. I feel here you don't need that. It flows. It's tight. Like, I think Azkaban has more of the spookums to it. It feels little creep 'em ups to it. This one feels more plot heavy, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Like, both of them dabble more in the wizarding world than the first two, and I like that. So to me, I would say watch the first one, skip the second one, watch 3 and 4. And for me, you get a better sense of that world. Doesn't mean that the plot expands. It just means you get a better sense of the world because, like, terrorist attacks feels very appropriate 2005. Like, you even get, like, a Tim McVeigh-esque like manifesto at one point, which that doesn't mean you need it, but like if terrorism exists in this world, you need fear. There's fear in this movie. Like that doesn't happen in kids' movies. It's not like C.S. Lewis has like a happy line and then a line that lights fires to shit, right? Like Tolkien is just good versus evil. This feels terrifying, man. I recommend this 100%. And like the book is better, but the book is also 16,000 pages. So read this. Read the script. Kelly, I don't know you.
I disagree with like 75% of what you said.
It's okay.
The movie itself holds up. There are some effects that I probably would go back and fix. Mad-Eye Moody's eye not being one of them. I think he was fantastic, but I disagree. You need to watch 2. You can skip the first half of this one. Mm-hmm. I think. No, I'm serious. Watch the final iteration of Harry Potter's Dream and the whole second half, and be done with it. I mean, I feel like this outside of yes, oh my God, there are magical games. This movie doesn't do a whole lot. This is probably my least. This is my least favorite movie. It used to be like bottom 3, but overall it's my bottom favorite movie. And not to say that the ones coming up I don't have more issues with how they align with the books, because I do have escalating issues with how these movies align with the books. A lot of those is because the movies were done before the final few books were done, so there were points that I felt were important that were missed. That's not their fault. But this particular movie, I honestly, outside of how Voldemort comes back and nothing else really, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, maybe it matters that Fleur meets Bill for the first time at the family meeting, but that's not in the movie. So, honestly, as much as the movie holds up time-wise out of the series, I'm going to call it now. This is my least favorite. I don't think it's as important as the others. And I would have previously said that about Prisoner of Azkaban, and I simply because it didn't have anything to do with the actual storyline for Voldemort, but I realize now on the rewatch, movie-wise, the books are different, but movie-wise, it's no longer one of my least favorites. 4 is bottom tier for me.
Cool. So, Kelly, what's the next one?
So on the next listen, you guys are going to hear us talk about Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is the very first movie that I saw in theaters. It came out the same summer as the final book of the series. And this is where this movie is what makes me fully dive into the series.
And when she says this was the first movie she saw in theaters, she means before then she was watching TV all the time. This was the first time she went to a movie theater.
Yes. Holy. No, this is the first Harry Potter movie that I ever saw in theaters. And to be honest, the second Harry Potter movie that I had ever seen ever. My mom made me watch the first one, and when it first came out in Blockbuster, if you're old enough to remember that.
That wretched hive of scum and villainy.
But yeah, this one holds a special place in my heart. And as of right now, I will be that person to say that Order of the Phoenix is my favorite movie because it is the first one that I saw. Now, watching it for the podcast, I reserve the right to change my mind.
Right. And then after that, Half-Blood Prince is next?
Half-Blood Prince, and then The Deathly Hallows, which is done in 2 parts.
And then Half-Blood Prince is the first one that will be Patreon only.
Yes.
And then after that, the 2 final episodes will be also Patreon only. I'll leak out a teaser, but otherwise, if you want to subscribe, you should, because we're gonna I mean, keep this long. The last 2 were over an hour 40.
Yeah, please subscribe, because if you subscribe, that means I get to do Fantastic Beasts after this, and I never get to host anything, so.
And we'll do a commentary track on that. So.
Yeah.
Plus, Nick
Yes.
gets to leak things out, which I know he's a big fan of.
Yeah,
I am
I
a
have
leaker.
heard. I have heard.
That's why there's a napkin underneath me.
They make underwear for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wrap us up, Kelly.
So thank you guys for listening. We really look forward to having you guys back. So keep listening to Myopia Movies. Stay posted for Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.